Hey, this is Matt once again. We're about to video. This is another paid request, this time from Brian. Thank you so much for that. And for those interested in requesting any type of videos, topics, reactions, commentaries, what have you, feel free to send it either directly to my PayPal or join my Patreon. Both links are down below in the info box. As this guy is ready to fall over. Oh, yeah, there we go. Come on, don't fall over, man. But pretty much Brian wanted me to rank the Raphael. I just kind of I did one on the April O'Neil because there was another request. So this one ranking the Raphaels from the various media of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, TV show, cartoon, movie-wise. And for those who want me to do any type of topic, review, commentary, reaction, video game stuff, whatever the case may be, PayPal's usually the best bet, or join my Patreon. Both links are down below in the info box. So, I'm gonna go. Let's go best to worst. And it was tough because it's between two versions. And people would be surprised who I would pick. Nostalgic, I would pick one, but I have to go with, as of right now, my favorite is the 2003 cartoon version of Raphael. Because the second is 1990 Raphael, and I was going to choose that as number one. But the reason I looked at the 2003 cartoon is just for the fact that that character had a lot more time and a lot more episodes, a lot more running time to shine as a character. The 1990 movie, I mean, if you want to take even the 1991 into inclusion, that, although it's a different voice actor, it's still only two movies, two stories, while the Raphael here has been in a ton of episodes. That show lasted quite a few years. There's some up and downs of years of that show, but in particular the first four seasons is a very strong cartoon. And the Raphael there, he's heroic, he's tough, he's a badass, he's got a lot of good badass moments. I mean, there's an episode where he's swallowed by a monster and he tits and juts himself out of its stomach. There's an episode where he's battling all these bugs and he's smashing them and turning them into goop. There's an episode where they're battling Agent Bishop and him and Mikey are double teaming and getting some nice hits on him. There's the episode where they battle the Shredder and Raphael's this great moment where he's like, Geronimo! He jumps off of one flying vehicle to smash to another vehicle and slams down to get Shredder out of the way. Or Shredder's trying to cut Leo and Raph blocks it and saves Leo. Plentiful times where he saves Donnie, even to the point where there's a line of dialogue, "Watch your back," and Donnie goes, "Is that what you're for?" It's just as many times where he's saving his brothers, he's being a hero, he's being tough, he's being a badass, but there's also some nice moments, whether it be when he's on the run and he meets this nice blind lady. I think Morrison was her last name. I'm bad with names. Mrs. Morrison. And she invites him in, and she has a cat that likes him. Like sweet moments like that. There's another kid where at one point he gets blinded, and the kid helps him fight these gangsters. His reporter, Casey Jones, is fairly well done in this. The only issue is when he has a story on its own, it's not the strongest stories. I wish there were more stories of just Raphael on the show, and the few that are, I wish they were a bit stronger. And sadly, there's not a lot of episodes of just Mikey and Raph together. There's like one in maybe the last season, which was meh, or much later on. But I wish there were a few more episodes of just the two of them doing some type of adventure together. I will like, because I like their back and forth on the show, and it's kind of like, if you watch the 18B Baracus and Murdoch, or plenty of other material that have had that, the tough guy, the wise ass funny guy, and their sort of banter, back and forth of bickering. That's fairly well implemented, and the guy voicing the character does a good job. I know he's voiced a lot of other characters. I forget which, but yeah, the voice of the 2003 cartoon and how that character's utilized. That's what I think of Raphael. Tough, heroic, brave, some good softness to his heart. I like that they implemented from the comic the bit in the episode Meet Casey Jones where he gets in such a rage-fueled temper that he almost takes a pipe and hits Mighty in the head with it. And then the sort of realization and horror, and he runs off and he's yelling, "What's wrong with me?" Yes, it's a kid's cartoon. I wish they had went further with that in later episodes, brought it back. He had nightmares. But yes, it's a kid's cartoon. You can only do so much. But I do wish they had gone further with it. But overall, love the cartoon, especially the first 4 seasons. And that Raphael has become my favorite version. Now, very close second is the 1990 movie. This guy here, Josh Payas, who was in the suit and the voice. He's the one that gave Raphael that sort of New York, Brooklyn, type of inflection of the voice. First time I'd seen Raphael with that attitude of being the hothead and being angry and confused. Love that implementation. He has a decent amount of usage in the first 1990 movie, whether it be the scene where he's being comforted by Splinter, or the scene where he saves April O'Neil, the scene where he gets beat up and put into a coma. The only reason I don't put this higher as number one is I love the 1990 film. People who've seen my channel know how much I love the 1990 film. But there's always this thing that kind of bothered me when you got to the third act is I get they were going with the idea of, well, by the third act he's part of the group, he's not an outsider, he's just with the group. There's a bit where Leo has a blade at his throat because of the Shredder, and Shredder tells him, throw down your weapons, and Mighty and Donnie, you see them looking at Raph, and Raph has to make the decision, doesn't rush in, doesn't become a hothead, throws his weapons down. That shows the character arc of Raphael, that he thinks things through, which gave them enough time for Splinter to come by and save the day. But you look at the first 2/3 of the film, Raphael's fairly implemented in that. Like I said, the scene with Splinter, the scene with April thanking him on camera, on her news report, and them making fun of him for it, the coma situation. If it was any other movie, like if this was X-Men with Wolverine, like they did in the first movie, they would build him up like they did Raphael, but then he would be centerpiece in the third act. That's what it should have been in the 1990 movie. I think they should have went further and either have him be the one to rescue Splinter, or him stand toe-to-toe with Shredder a bit longer. After the coma, he's a bit more, has a little bit more, just maybe he blames himself for Splinter being caught, because he's the one who rescued April, but he's the one who carried April to their lair, so the Foot were able to follow him, so maybe he blames himself, and it's his own fault. He has a little bit more of the gain, has a little bit more. So yeah, I would have either preferred him rescuing Splinter instead of Casey Jones, or him talking to Danny. You know what they try to do in the third film, where Raphael's talked to the kid? I think him talking to Danny would have made more sense, because they're both guys who have scenes where their fathers comfort them, are rebellious, are hot-headed, and maybe Raphael could impart some words onto him like Splinter did to him, and then rescue Splinter, have a fight scene with Tatsu. That alone would have been fairly well implemented. I think it would have. I wish they would have went in that direction in the script. As much as I love Elias Cortez, I love the bit where he knocks out Tatsu, but I think script-wise it would make more sense for it to be Raphael. Plus, the other kids who are so adamant against these turtles, they see a guy who's rescuing his dad. And so they see him like it's not a monster, it's not a freak, it's just a son rescuing his dad. And maybe that would help them change their ways as well. without being too after school special. So I just, if they implement some of that, then this would be number one. As is, I love Josh Baez's voice work, love the work by Jim Henson's group. I even love the details like the scar under his chin, under his eye, not chin, under his eye. Makes you wonder where and how he got that. Very well done. The amount of seriousness in that kid's film. And number three, close by, is the 1991 Secret of the Ooze. I think the guy who voices him does a rather good job, to the point that I remember for a while I thought it was the same guy who voiced the two characters, until later on I'm like, oh, it is two different guys. And I noticed now, but I thought he did a pretty good job replicating the voice actor from the first movie. I still like Raphael in it. I like the little bit he has with Tino, which was kind of what I was wanting in the first film. I like the little family moments, especially of the live action. That's the one where Mighty actually messes with Raph, which is very cool, because I'm a sucker of those two, and they're bonding and they're bickering. So are they Mighty saying their names, and all the good ones end in O. Or when Tino steps on his foot and Mighty's kind of doing this thing to calm Raph down. Those little moments there, I wish we could have seen even more of that. And yes, the second film is flawed. You never find out the Secret of the Ooze, which is the title of the damn movie. The fight with Super Shredder should have been a lot more exciting. They should have fought him hand-to-hand, not just him with the peers, anticlimactic. It is a flawed film, don't get me wrong, but I still liked it. I like the Jim Henson suit. I like the look of the character. He still has some nice martial arts moments in it. Like I said, I like the moments he has with Ernie Reyes Jr. And call it nostalgic, because and the first one was the ones I grew up with the most. But I did enjoy that aspect. And number four, I would put Rob Paulsen, Raphael in the 80s cartoon. My introduction to Raphael, my introduction to the characters. Let's say the other ones I like a bit more, because when you watch your cartoon again, some of the jokes of the fourth wall breaking are funny, some of it is not. But it's decently consistent for that time period, the jokes. And even some of the episodes he's in are memorable, where he meets Mona Lisa. There's the episode where he thinks he's going to die, so he's doing all these heroic moments until he realizes it was a mistake. But I remember watching that show many, many years ago. I just tried to watch them all in one go. And after a while, it felt like Raphael was useless. Like, it felt like Raphael didn't really do anything with the group. He just seemed fairly useless and pointless of a character. Like, maybe every once in a while he would say a joke, but it's just like, is he don't do anything in this episode? Is he don't do anything in that episode? Like, compared to the 2003 cartoon, where it's much more heroic and, much more the muscle of the group. Here, because he's kind of the Matthew Perry from Friends type of guy. Come in, says a joke, or look at the camera, break the fourth wall, move along. There are times I'm wishing he would do more. I'm wishing he would be more prominent to the stories, or more prominent to some of this other stuff. So that brought it down a bit, but overall. And of course, now when I hear the voice, I always think of, well, he's also Donatello, that 2012 cartoon. But definitely the voice a lot of people think of Raphael, a lot of people's introduction. He does do a very good job with the role. That's why he's in the top 5. And also that cartoon, I like less nowadays than I did as a kid. I did definitely say that's a cartoon I liked a lot more when I was a kid. When I watch it nowadays, it's lost a bit of its luster for me. But I still enjoy it. It's still what got me into the franchise. It's still fun. 80s cartoon. maybe as I'm older, I don't know. It just, like I say, it's lost a bit of its luster. But it's still a fun show. Still a show. I think also it's one of those things that because of how much a phenomenon the show is, Sally has been the anchor to this franchise where anything that's made, they always got to go back to that show, reference the feel, the characters, I, the tone of that show. Which, despite the fact that these characters have the sky's the limit, but that show sadly made it a limitation of the show, of the franchise, I should say, to keep replicating or referencing or honing in on that show, having lightning strike twice. That's the one that people know of the most, so that's the one we replicate the most. It's not that show's fault. It's just Sally what has come of it. But I still like it. I still like Rob Paulson's delivery of a lot of the lines. Like I said, I wish also the character would do a bit more, and at times be a bit more useful to the team. Because that's a show that really became like, we need an issue to be solved. Get Donatello. I remember losing count how many times the final bit was Donatello creating some kind of machine or some kind of idea or replicating some kind of thing to save the day. Like Donatello was the main go-to man for that. Or Mighty. Because I think you could argue that Mighty was the most popular of the 80s cartoon. So it'd be like Mighty or mainly Donatello. So. But still, good voice acting. This is where it gets a bit harder, but number 5, I will put the 2007 CGI movie. Because of all the characters they had on the 2007 film, Raphael was the more utilized. In particular, his Night Watcher persona. Leo left to South America. They don't know what to do. Raphael has this vigilante bit of business he's doing with his Night Watcher outfit and these chains. I think the guy voicing him would go on to voice Nathan Drake on the video games. Don't quote me on that. I could be very, very wrong on that. Because I know that guy who voiced Nathan Drake voiced Raphael in somewhere. I keep thinking it was this one. Maybe I'm wrong. But did not mind the voice. The Night Watcher persona was very cool. That's one of those films that, if I reviewed it nowadays, I would not have as much anger compared to, it's easily better than Mutant Mayhem, it's easily better than Michael Bay's 2 films he produced. It's just one of those films that I see potential, and I think with a different director, writer, because Kevin Munro wrote and directed, if you had a different guy at the helm, but yeah, these pieces there, I think you could have had something a lot more special, a lot more memorable. A lot more, feature a bit more action and fight scenes, feature a bit of a longer running time, have Mikey and Donnie more implemented and built up into it. Leo not be such a two-faced, hypocritical dit face. I know I'm talking about the movies, but this is ranking the Raphaels. So Raphael, I like the Night Watcher aspect. I like what I didn't like about it. That's why he's a bit lower on the list. Is the way they wrote it, where he was in the wrong. No matter what, no matter how you looked at it, he was in the wrong. I'm sitting there going, well, Leo was doing the same thing, and you're not knocking Leo. Like, Leo was being a vigilante in South America. So why is that okay? But if Raphael does it, he's a bad guy. And there's never a point where Leo apologizes and says, you know what, I was being hypocritical. You know, and it just, I don't like how they implemented that on Raphael. That he's the bad guy and this and that, and I do like that he leads the team to rescue Leo. But again, they don't follow through on it. It's just Raph and Leo have this like 1 or 2 line dialogue. There should have been like a dialogue piece after the fight where they make amends. Or I remember, I think it was on the commentary or somewhere hearing about how one of the ideas was that Raphael, I'm guessing, would have saved Leo or saved someone or saved them all and gave his life. And then maybe Leo would have this emotional moment where he maybe said all the things I'm talking about, but then because of the magic, Raphael would be brought back to life, and there you go. That maybe would have made any art poignant and emotional. But from what I understand, Peter Laird nixed that idea, said no. So, gotta blame Peter Laird for that. Can't put all the blame on Kim Monroe, so... I didn't, so maybe it's Peter Laird. Maybe some of it was his fault, too. Maybe Kevin Monroe had more ideas, and Peter Laird, for some reason, had these handcuffs on him. I don't know. I think some of that was more implemented. This could have risen above, but again, if he had more interactions with Mikey and Donnie, if he had more interactions of the Night Watcher, maybe a few more fight scenes, maybe this could have moved up a bit. But I said the Night Watcher aspect, there's a lot of stuff you could have done with that. Sadly, just wasn't the case, but that angle at least made it fairly unique, very interesting, and I see the voice actor, the look of the character, especially when he's in Night Watcher suit, pretty good looking design. And like I said, of the Turtles, I thought he was easily the strongest of the 4 character-wise in that movie, so definitely gotta put him in the top 5. This is where it starts getting tough. Because I got about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 more, and I didn't know how to rank them. So next up, I probably would put the 1993 version of Raphael, despite the fact that he looks like all the turtles look diseased. They got moles all over them. They look like a leper colony. Despite the fact that the voice actor is not nearly as good as in the first 2. It's still that practical suit work, but it's not Jim Henson. I can appreciate some of the ideas they're doing, where he's trying to teach the little kid about anger issues. I guess kind of what I was talking about with Danny and with the first movie they could have done. Even though it comes out of nowhere, because they should have had him save the kid or do CPR on the kid, and then you could get why the kid would be drawn towards him. But it's one of those things where I can appreciate what they're trying to do. So he didn't feel like a useless character. It's just, again, terrible suits, not quite having the right voice actor for it. I think the director who wrote the film as well, there's a lot of improvements that could have been made. But at the same time, that Raphael didn't make me mad. It's just, I could see what they were going with. I think they could have done a bit better with it. Like I said, with stronger writing. But the idea, again, of him wanting to stay because they could be here and be free and not have to hide in the sewers. There's some interesting ideas. And I still appreciate that's done with practical suits, although subpar ones. And like the voice is like trying to be the voice of the first 2. So it's trying to be a bit more in that feel for Raphael. And compared to the ones afterward, I could watch him a bit more for its, I don't want to say potential, but what he was trying to do. Yeah. I don't want to say ambition, but uh, if they had the suit from the first or second film, I'd probably be not as harsh on this Raphael, and that's more I could say for a lot of these other ones afterward. Like the next one, and people don't be surprised, this is not last. I gotta put the 2014 and 2016, that Raphael, voiced by Alan Ritchson. Now, let me be clear, all the stuff afterward, I'm not a fan of. So, I'm not a fan of any of the stuff afterward. I'm not a big fan of the 93 film. I'm definitely not a fan of this film or all the next stuff. It's just, I guess I'm thinking of the lesser two evils. So yeah, the 2014-2016 Raphael, I hate the design, I hate the look, I hate the steroids, I hate the almost as big as the Incredible Hulk, I hate the indestructible shells that they give to the turtles that makes bullets bounce. I hate the fact that Raphael can now lift entire fucking things and throw them. You know what? Fuck that. I'm gonna put Next Mutation next. Because Next Mutation is not good, but is harmless. It's one of those things that it's not good, but it's harmless, but it's very forgettable. Kind of like the show. Like the show, well, a lot of the usage of the characters, other than what Venus de Milo, like it's very forgettable. It's fairly, like I said, in one ear out the other. Cheap, try to be like Power Rangers, lack of budget. So yeah, I'll put Next Mutation next, because again, the more I think about the 2014 film, the more that pisses me off, so Next Mutation, forgettable, harmless, but not that good. Not that good either. It's more just an oddity that I'm curious about than anything I like or hate, if that makes sense. But again, it's so forgettable, other than Venus, because it was a different character, that, I don't know, kind of just sits there. Then I would choose, I got four other options. See, now I'm thinking in my head which direction to go. I don't know. I'll go then with the 2014 film version in 2016. Because, again, I hate the size that he is among the other turtles. I hate that, he gets in a fight with the Shredder, and the Shredder fucking kicks his ass in a minute. But at least there's some moments of badass to him. At the end of the first film, he does that great kick, the Shredder, to push him back. At least they try to make him a tough badass a decent amount of times throughout it. How do I feel about making him so indestructible and so big in the designs? At least they try to give him some nice badass moments, like down the snow when he does the cannonball and obliterates an entire Humvee. Even the second film when he jumps off and he clotheslines two people on motorcycles at the same time. At least those moments, okay, he's not a complete tool fool. So I can appreciate that. I know Alan Ritchson, he's now gone to that Jack Reacher TV show. Which I've seen some of the fight scenes. Some of the fight scenes are cool. So I'll give props to that, to Alan Ritchson. And I'd say at least he's not too much a buffoon. Although in the second one, there's that bit with the airplane where he lands on it and there's his tongue sticking out and slides off. So there's that stupid moment. So I'm not a fan of those movies. I'm not a fan. But at least there are times he's trying to be a badass. Which more I could say for the rest. Because the next one I'm going to put is Rise of the Turtles, Raph. Once again, trying to make them big, gigantic. I think he's an alligator snapping turtle in that. He's the leader, but he seems like an idiot. Like, I've seen clips and bits and pieces. He seems like an idiot. He seems like a moron. The whole show seems like not my cup of tea. Donnie being an unemotional prick. Mikey trying to be a wannabe Chris Tucker. And then Leo. He's probably the most interesting character because, honestly, you might as well just call him Nathan Lane from The Birdcage with how flamboyant he is. And hey, there's nothing wrong with it. Just, hey, your bird fly right to all the gay clubs. Be my guest. Nothing wrong with that, but he's the most interesting character, and it's like, just fucking own up to it, man. But he's definitely like Nathan Lane from The Birdcage. And Raph is just, I don't know. I will put him above the other two because there's a handful of moments I've seen in clips where he seems to step up a bit. I saw a bit of the finale where his family's fighting. He makes this leap of faith. The others are going after him, and it unleashes their inner power. So at least it doesn't make Raph as useless. But yeah, I'm not really big on the voice acting. I'm not really big on the choice of voice. I don't like the design, the look of Raphael with the snaggletooth and all that. I don't know, I just... not appealing. I mean, I guess I do appreciate of the Turtles. He's definitely one of the few that doesn't have an anger issue. You know, he is probably trying to be the more responsible of the four, and that could be interesting. But again, even by the end, they just make him not a leader anymore. They just give it to Leo again. So he failed at that, being a leader, I guess. Just not appealing to me. And then the second to worst is the 2012 cartoon, which I enjoy the first 2 or so seasons, but after that, I think it's fairly overrated. And here's the thing, when I watch that show, I like Jason Biggs when he was Leo, but then he says some inappropriate things and they fired him. They got Seth Green, who has an awful voice for Leo. Doesn't fit. But Jason Biggs was good. The guy who voiced Mikey grew on me. I grew to like him. I know he was also Beast Boy on Teen Titans. He grew on me. Rob Paulson voices Donnie. Had to take a bit of getting used to because I kept hearing Raphael, but after a bit, got used to him. Sean Astin, I'm not a fan of as Raphael. And I think that Raphael, there's too many times that popped up that he just became a joke or became a goof, or how much of it was his fault. And it just, the more I watched, the more Raphael just pissed me off on that show. And the more and more I just hated him on that show. And because I loved the character and I started to hate him more and more of how useless or how pointless or how much of a dumbass he was, it made me hate the show. It really is one of the primary reasons it made me hate the show. Because the first season was so underhandled, but like anytime he had a solo episode, it was his fault. Something happened that was his fault, and the juxtaposition of the episode was him fixing his own mistake. Oh, here's an episode where some guy took their pictures because of him. So they have to go back to get the pictures But then Raphael's getting so pissed, so they fucking leave him behind. Then he has to learn his ways and then go back and help his brothers and fix his mistake. Oh, here's his pet turtle. He accidentally put the pet turtle into some fucking ooze. So you have Slash, voiced by Corey Feldman. Oh, but Raphael talked so much shit about his brothers, so Slash beat the shit out of his brothers. So Raphael has to fix his own mistake and fight Slash. Then you thought there was going to be something to it where now it's going to be Raphael's arch enemy. Nope, the next time they're pretty copacetic. Wow, nothing was done with that. Oh, Raphael's controlled by these worms. He's going to fight his brothers. Well, nothing really much comes of it. Then Leo gives him a hug. He snaps out of it. And pretty simple. Really, it's like Leo makes fun of him, insults him, and then hugs him. And then everything's fine with Raph. I'm like, a lot more could have been done with that, but nope. Raphael didn't like Bugs in 2003 cartoon. Here, he's outright afraid to the point that there's this gizmo that's like that Don uses a bug as a spy cam. Raphael fucks up. It gets this ooze type of thing on it, mutated, and then literally it starts attacking them, and Raphael runs away like a chicken shit and hides. And that's supposed to be the arc. Oh, it makes it more emotional, makes it more human, makes it more relatable because he's so afraid. No, he's so deathly afraid he's a chicken shit. Even when his family's in trouble and he fucking runs away. From my view, in my eyes, Raphael doesn't do that. I know this is a different type. That's why it's not my type. It's not my fucking fave. Far from it. This has been when they're riding horses, and he's afraid of riding horses. Because the whole gist of it is that he's a tough guy, so let's find as many ways to make him not tough. Hell, there was an episode where they're wearing costumes, and Mikey mentions, remember that one time you wore a fairy princess costume? And he's like, that was only one time. So yeah, this Raphael, at one point, liked wearing fairy princess costumes. I get it. Well, you're taking it too seriously. It's meant to jokes. And for jokes. And I know it's meant for jokes. I just didn't think they were funny and just made him more and more of a pussy. And as the show went on, he was more and more useless. Oh, they don't battle vampires, but he's the first to get bit. He's the only one to get bit and turn to a vampire. So the whole episode, he's in a fucking leash, pretty much. Chained up, I should say. Oh, Leo is getting out of his coma. It's the first day out of his coma. Let's protect Leo. No, Raph is the first and only to get caught. The first and only to get turned to a fucking flower. Nobody else does. And Leo defeats the monster after a day of being out of a coma that he was in for months. You're in a coma for months, and within the one day, you defeat this monster, but Raphael couldn't do it, and he gets turned into a flower. Wow, is Leonardo played by Steven Seagal? Is this hard to kill? Is Leo with Kelly LeBrock? This Leo is hard to kill. Shit like that consistently. Oh, well, Raph, when they're in space, brought home this other turtle. But the mama, who's the size of Godzilla, came by, is destroying the city because Raph brought home this fucking turtle, so he's got to fix his own mistake. Just time and time and time and time again. And for those who get mad at me saying that, where am I saying the lie? Where's the lie? Did that happen? Yes. Did that happen? Yes. Did that happen? Yes. Well, there you fucking go. That's why I hate that fucking character in that show. The other characters I like better. I think Mikey's actually pretty good. Leo, when it was Jason Biggs, was pretty good. Donnie I liked. But as that show went on, I started disliking it more. And he's not the only reason, but one of the reasons is because of Raphael and how shitty it was. I was thinking of putting him as the worst, but I liked him in the first season. And some of the stuff that I mentioned in the first season I could deal with. But the fact that it never changed and it just got worse, that's where my anger rose. And then the last is the 2023 film, because that Raphael was fucking useless, fucking pointless. Gap tooth dick fuck. I don't know. He's a dick face. Gap tooth dick face. The Raphael in the new film is so useless, so pointless. The worst voice acting they've picked for Raphael. Like, the worst voice acting. That's the one reason why he's the worst. Of all the voices of Raphael, his is the worst voice. Is the worst voice. If you pitch it a different way, he almost sounds like Rosie O'Donnell or something. I just hate his voice acting. He sounds like Nelson from The Simpsons. He's going to get ready to beat up Bart and Milhouse. He does nothing in the movie. There's a bit where he's ready to shoot this gun and it fucking fails. Against the big Godzilla-sized Superfly. When Leo's giving this big speech, it almost felt like he had nothing to say about Raph. So then Raph goes up and rips up a door. It's like, I have nothing to say to him, so let me say him some bullshit. Great, he ripped open a door. Yay. Just useless fucking nothing of a character. And I'm supposed to see more of this character, of this version, in a sequel or TV show. Happy fucking days. Yay. Give me a fucking break. So, that's why it's the worst to me. Take that for you will. Be pissed at me if you want. It's not the first or last time. So with that said, thanks for watching. We'll see you guys later. Bye-bye.